What's going on? My name is Joe, and I practice talking on the internet. Donald Trump is projected, or at least positioned, to have more outsider money enter into his campaign than actual committed money from him as a candidate. I'm going to say that again. There is more outside money in the Trump campaign than there was inside money for the Trump campaign. From the Harris campaign, about half of, I don't have the word this out exactly, but if you were to say that $1 billion were raised in order to help the Harris campaign from the inside, so from like the candidate committee money, half a billion dollars was funded from outside funds, from outside means. Comparatively, Robert F. Kennedy was in a similar situation. He raised, I think it was like $60 million, and then $50 million came from outside contributions. And then you have Jill Stein and Cornel West in the million area with zero coming from the outside. It got me thinking about a few things. And basically, we allowed for political campaigns to go for a very extended period of time, and then we allow them to be privately financed. And I think it's time, especially considering the contributions that came about from both campaigns from the outside, that we need to restrict campaigns so that they're financed only through contributions from individual residents. And then from there, we got to cap how much money those individuals can contribute towards people running for office. I think it's time for us to be kind of honest about that at this point in time. While I understand what that means for the sake of campaigns, I do think it's necessary for us to take corporate money out of elections and get back into these sort of two ideas that we have in America, which is we have not only the equal opportunity to vote, but also the equal opportunity to run for office. And there's a lot attached to that, right? Not only from the financing standpoint, just from the idea of being able to support yourself, right? For, like, say you're if you're an employee, like you work for a company, you need to have the means, like the only way that you can practically run a consistent and adequate campaign is for you to step down from your job. That's the only way. And by stepping down from your job, that means anything that's attached from your job is no longer there. So if you have health benefits, maybe you'll get them in terms of like offboarding for a couple months, but then after that it dwindles up. Your income is immediately compromised. And even if you were to run for office and quit your job and then win, you still have no guarantee that your job will be there after you run. And this is regardless if you win or lose, right? So if you win, there's no guarantee that your job will be there for you after you are in sort of civic life. There's no guarantee that your job will be there for you after you lose. And that's a problem. We are essentially saying, for if you're employed, you have to give up your job during the campaign, a campaign that could last months, if not years, especially considering where you might be politically, right? So there's more at stake. It's a longer road, I should say, if you are looking to run as a Green Party member than, say, as a Republican or a Democrat or a Libertarian. You have a longer road. So if you are a third party candidate or looking to be a third party candidate, the road is just going to be inherently longer than that if you were going to run as a Democrat. But even then, it still remains true that your options are be employed and run an insufficient campaign that's going to have to be some way integrated into your life as an employee, or quit and spend all of your attention, but now you have no means of income, no means of healthcare unless you had it separate from your job. But for a lot of people, your healthcare is attached to your employer. Thanks, ACA. And then in order to get into a situation where anyone can run for office, we need to make sure that the means of support are there while you're campaigning. And then a guarantee of your job after you run for office, or basically after when the campaign's over, rather. And if we don't do this, it means a large portion of people who want to run for office are barred from doing so due to the vulnerabilities they have with the attachment with their employer and the attachment of their life before they enter into office. And it's just such a long road when you think about it, right? When you're going up against an incumbent, you're not going up against a normal person. You're going up against a person who's essentially not a member of the working class, not a member of the employee class. They are somebody who's getting money from the government to govern. So they can just take a break from governance in order to run their campaigns. Kamala Harris did that for 107 days while she still had obligations as a VP. It was clearly obvious that she took a step back towards running her campaign. Same thing with Joe Biden. The minute Joe Biden entered into the campaign running, he had to do that balancing act between his obligations as the president and then his ability to run a campaign. And in a lot of ways, as we saw with Donald Trump, there's different ways of going about it. We see this with a lot of incumbents, but regardless if it's the incumbent for the presidency or the incumbent for a senator and Congress member, you're an uphill battle if you're a civilian. You're up against their ability to have an entire major party behind them and the corporate backings that come with that. You're up against the time. They have the time and resources to go all over the country or all over your own state in terms of garnering support. And if you are like most people, you are somebody with a job. You are somebody that has a family. You have somebody that has obligations to your employer and your family. And you can't just uproot those things for 1 to 2 years to run a campaign and then think it's all going to be well and good when you go back there. The only people who are awarded these type of things are people who have independent means of making a living, detached from being a member of the working class, or they are just in a class of their own and are able to take these kind of risks. Shout out to Vivek Ramaswamy. He started and ended his political campaign rich. Robert F. Kennedy, Jill Stein. Jill Stein was rich before, during, and after her campaign, and she goes back to being rich when she's out of the mix. That's not okay. So I think we need to, moving forward, really start having a conversation about a lot of things. But in this particular video, I think there's 3 things that I think we need to start having conversations about. Campaign stipends, basically saying that, hey, while you're running this campaign, you will have the financial means to make sure that you're okay. And okay meaning that your material conditions don't completely upend itself when you are running for office. Employment guarantee. So basically saying your employer cannot let you go just by virtue of you running a campaign. So regardless of win or loss, that job is still there for you. And then some level of finance reform. I'm in the position where it should only be through individual donations with a cap of how much that should be donated. And that means that there's no more PACs giving money to campaigns, no more corporations giving money to campaigns. It's just private individuals putting their own money up with that money being capped. And I think those 3 in tandem will start bringing in different conversations about the responsibility that the media has in terms of expressing candidates in a meaningful manner. Yeah, ads are expensive, but I don't necessarily think they have to be. I don't necessarily think that every single aspect of a campaign that has some type of monetary attachment to it currently is something that we ought to continue doing. And I think those three things in tandem, campaign stipends, employment guarantee, and finance reform of only private individuals being able to donate with a cap, I think would be a giant step forward in terms of basically presenting these two ideas, like equal opportunity to vote and the equal opportunity to run for office. And I think that time and time again, we kind of just accept that we don't have equal opportunity to run for office. And then we make a bunch of reasons that make absolutely no sense. But then at the same time, you'll hear people say, "Well, if you want change in your, if you want change in your community, just go out and run for office." And then we don't interrogate the mechanisms as to why nobody does that, or not a lot of people are able to do that. And then again, like, we use these arbitrary positions. Like, it doesn't cost that much money to run for a school board. Yeah, but it still remains true that while you're running for a school board, you still have other obligations. And not to mention, in a lot of states, school boards don't pay. So you are essentially campaigning for a position that's only going to pay you in some states $1,000 a meeting once a month. And it's only 10 months out of the year. And that's, I guess, something that only we allow people who have independent means of making a living detached from being a member of the working class or people who are already wealthy to do. It doesn't surprise me that the vast majority of school board members have the two things I mentioned. And that's not okay. And I think that we need to start creating conditions so that people have the equal opportunity to run for office. And I understand how controversial this perspective might be, but I think we had to start looking at the billions of dollars that was spent on this campaign and the billions of dollars that was spent in outside contributions. And we had to look at that objectively and basically ask the question, are we okay with corporatism in our politics? Elon Musk donated over $5 million to the Trump campaign, and we're just okay with that. We had the Democratic Party peddle celebrities in front of our faces and make it seem like they're just like us. So we're okay with that. We had to start really taking a look at corporatism in politics and just spend a concentrated effort of getting it out. Otherwise, we're just going to run into the same thing over and over, where we get to have to watch these rich people lose while everybody else suffers. Either way, I hope you're well this Tuesday. It's not even a Tuesday, excuse me. It's Wednesday. I understand there's a lot of people who are upset with the election results, but I guess I'm relatively neutral. I'm organizing a video of my thoughts for that, so that'll probably come up in the next day or so. That's all I got for now, and I'll talk to you soon.